It is an incredible time to be modding Fallout 4. August 2022 was one of the best months for Fallout 4 modding in a very long time. We got several of those you download them now and then keep them forever mods. New weapons that actually have new and unique features around them that make them interesting, not just another new weapon mod. An FPS based mod that actually saw me getting consistent 60 FPS in downtown Boston. For me, this is the biggest FPS boost I've ever gotten from a single mod, as well as a ton of other cool things and new features being implemented into Fallout 4. And first up, we do have the NZ41, and this may look familiar to some of you as this is actually a port, with permission, being from Call of Duty Warzone. And although we have definitely seen a lot of Call of Duty weapons making their way into Fallout 4 as of late, this is probably one of my favorite of the bunch. The NZ41 is going to be based off the real-world Charlton automatic rifle. This was this crazy World War II era New Zealand weapon that was basically a converted Lee Enfield, and they tried to make it into something fully automatic. It is some bizarre and rare weapon, and it fits absolutely perfectly in Fallout 4. Despite this being from Call of Duty, it actually feels quite at home in the Commonwealth. As you can see, the weapon has a whole host of customization options. It's implemented quite well in Fallout 4, and a wide array of different scopes and barrels that you'll be able to choose from. It without a doubt features more customization options than the typical Call of Duty port, but it's also just incredibly satisfying to use. It has all kinds of different ammo choices that determine the ammo capacity and give it a proper rifle feel to almost more of an assault weapon. And although on its own it is pretty awesome, it also has this really special built-in functionality from another new mod that changes up the way it works in a major way, that being side aim framework. So Side Aim Framework will work with a variety of mods, but this is a new one that has its functionality built in. It'll give you two new options in Fallout 4. The ability to change the fire type of the weapon from semi-automatic to fully automatic, as well as the ability to actually use a canted sight on the weapon. So if you assigned a scope to your weapon, you could tilt it slightly to avoid that magnification and just see things normally. And I gotta say, this is easily one of the coolest new mods to come out in the Fallout 4 modding scene. There are so many modern weapons and just really a whole host of weapon mods in general. And so rarely is there actually anything new or fresh, and this is that. Being able to change from semi-automatic to fully automatic on the fly based off whatever hotkey you assign it to works flawlessly. And although it is kind of tactical to be using your canted sights from time to time, there's also a fair amount of practical reasons you may want to do this in game. It's very rare we get mods that actually change up the combat loop in Fallout 4, and whenever one of these does come out, you got to get very excited for it. And considering this is a relatively new one, I hope to see more and more support for it in the future, although there is one major downside, and that is, at least as of right now, Side Aim Framework is a Discord exclusive mod. Does seem like there are plans for it to come out on Nexus in the future, but if you're against Discord exclusive mods, unfortunately you're gonna have to skip this one. Although we just got yet another pretty revolutionary new mod that with climbable ladders for Fallout 4. Just like those climbable ladders that are coming with Starfield, and though I want to show you how awesome this is in Fallout 4, let's be honest, Fallout 4 modding right now is really just like the Starfield waiting room, but if you want to get into a galaxy even sooner, you don't even have to wait. Thanks to today's video sponsor with Galaxy Lamps. The Galaxy Projector is powerful. It can transform entire rooms with ease, or even in my case, just illuminate my entire apartment. This will feature full-on app integration. You can choose to have a heavy starlight in your background, or literally any color you want, as it does feature full-on RGB support. As well as you could turn the lights down if you're after some mood lighting, or at max brightness you could truly light up a room. Or even just wake up feeling like you are actually in outer space, as you can set up timers and schedules also. And if you want to feel like you're truly living in the future, you can set your Galaxy Projector up with Amazon Alexa or Google Assistant, but for those of you living in the past, you don't actually have to use an app at all. And there's even a built-in 3-stand system that lets you control how exactly the light is directed. And you are actually in luck. Since you watched this video, you can get 15% off your Galaxy Projector with code JuiceHead or by just clicking my link in the video description. Thanks again to Galaxy Lamps for sponsoring this video. But looking back at Fallout 4, yes, climbable ladders are finally here, that with climbable ladders for settlements. This adds in a placeable ladder, and the way it works is you can walk up to it, hit a hotkey, and you will actually begin a climbing animation, and then it'll kind of deposit you at the top of the ladder. With this, you'll have a few different heights of ladders, as well as a few different visual options for the ladders you place down. And even though I'm not typically somebody who's particularly into settlement building, I found this to be incredibly useful. It really simplifies the vertical building process, no longer requiring to build complex staircases. The ladders will even snap to existing structures structures to make building up a bit more convenient, and NPCs will use the ladders. But okay, now you have some new ladders, you have some new weapons and features to go along with them. How about some actual content? Next up, we do have Mutant Menagerie Nuclear Safari, which is going to add in a whole host of new creatures into Fallout 4, with most of these being specific to Nuka World. This is the third release in the Mutant Menagerie series, and thematically, this may be one of my favorites of the bunch. At its core, what this mod will do is add in a whole array of new passive and aggressive new creatures into Fallout 4's Nuka World, each of these being thematically appropriate for this area, and basically all of them having their own background, lore, or justification for being here. There's a wide range of new things here, from aggressive packs to hyenas that will pop up, or the passive and very fearful Mingos. The story behind this being the whole host of safari animals escaped, of course, from the safari aspect of Nuka World. A bunch of creatures broke out of the safari adventure, were infected by radiation, and then mutated, and now you have these abominations running all around the park. And I think one of the best parts about the Mutant Menagerie series is not only does it make the Commonwealth just as a whole a bit more interesting, but these are also very well integrated. Many of the creatures have dynamic spawns, so you'll actually find them wandering about or even in little spats with other creatures over territory. In addition, these are fully implemented with new features. Taking out the new creatures will yield new items for you to use in crafting recipes. You'll actually be able to find magazines to unlock new things. This will be perfect for both survival players or even just regular players looking for new and unique buffs to your character. But there are also some serious threats hiding throughout Nuka World. Nuka Quantum creatures are an even more deadly Nuka-Cola Quantum infected variety of enemies that will appear from time to time. They're relatively rare, but when you actually do face one, they're going to be one of the toughest fights in Fallout 4. But of course, there's going to be some special rewards for when you defeat them. There's also several special bosses scattered around Nuka World, this being a one-time spawn that once you defeat it, they won't respawn, but they're going to be scaled way above your level and meant to be a true boss fight. Overall, I think this mod's pretty awesome. It adds a ton of life to Nuka World and really the Commonwealth overall, and as I mentioned before, I think it really just adds a ton with how well implemented it is, actually giving a lot of practicality to interacting with or really taking out many of these new creatures. But speaking of taking out new creatures, you'll probably want some new weapon mods to deal with this whole host of new threats. And one of the best new weapon mods to come out is the PKM. This is one of those new weapon mods that really just checks all of the boxes for me. Thematically, it actually fits well enough into Fallout 4. Modern weapons are definitely overrepresented in the Fallout 4 modding scene right now, but I think to me there's just something about the design and really the integration of this PKM mod that makes it so it doesn't really feel that out of place in Fallout 4. And it features a wider range of customization options, so you could take this from something that was crudely found in a truck somewhere to over the top and tactical. But it's also one of those weapon mods that doesn't just have a best choice. There are a bunch of customization options with this one that have pros and cons, like a higher rate of fire with a damage drop off, different ammo types that may have a deep perk requirement but can also be very powerful. And I mean, there's even just a variant that shoots shotgun rounds, kind of hard to beat that. But it also does have this new unique bullet penetration mechanic, so when you're using AP rounds with the PKM, you'll actually have the ability to take out enemies when they're behind cover. There's a few other mods with a similar integration like this, but it's really practical with the PKM because you could kind of just spray in that general direction and actually take out enemies as they're hiding behind things. It's a very satisfying mechanic and quite well implemented. The icing on the cake with the PKM is it actually does have a fully custom reload animations that are true belt-fed animations made possible by using an extended skeleton with this weapon. Honestly, right now, Fallout 4 really lacks options for heavy weapons in the base game, and the PKM fits that role perfectly. It doesn't feel like the most lore-friendly weapon in Fallout 4's Commonwealth, but it still fits in surprisingly well, as a lot of those custom features make this a clear standout among many of the other weapon mods out there. But if you are looking for something a bit more lore-friendly, we also do have the 12.7mm SMG. This adding in the iconic New Vegas weapon into Fallout 4. And of course, with this, you have a whole host of customization options. You could have the true form from New Vegas, but also some extensive customization, whether it be a makeshift or even marksman option for you to choose from. And this is another one of those weapons that does fit quite well into Fallout 4. A higher caliber, higher damage SMG that is just a bit better than the vanilla, well, SMG, that is what the weapon's called in Fallout 4. So yeah, the 12.7mm SMG, a bit more powerful than the regular SMG. Overall, lore-friendly, well implemented with a ton of customization options and just a blast to use in-game. No crafting animations is one of those mods that's just a complete game changer for me. It'll make it so when walking up to a crafting bench, there's a much shorter animation that will play, and most importantly, when leaving the crafting table, it's almost instant. In vanilla Fallout 4, I've spent way too much time staring at this bloated, annoying unnecessarily long animation, and I am just sick of it. As you might imagine from some of these videos, I spend a lot of time crafting weapons or armors, editing them to show you all the different combinations. I've probably spent at least an hour or two of my life staring at this animation, and this mod makes it so I don't have to do that anymore. And if you download it, you won't have to do it anymore either, so I highly recommend you do it. Although another mod that is likely to stay in your load order for the long haul is Shadow Boost. This is a pretty awesome new mod that's going to upgrade your performance in Fallout 4. The way this works is you set a target FPS in the game, and the mod will actively tune several aspects of the visual side of Fallout 4 to try and hit that target FPS. So some of the things it can affect, and there's a full configuration menu for this, are shadows, God rays, LOD, and more. So basically, if you want to hit 60 FPS, it'll tune down the visual fidelity of shadows to try and boost your FPS, and it does this dynamically. So if you go into an area like downtown Boston where things will be more taxing, it'll tune things down further. But if you're in a well-performing area, it might not actually do anything. This mod may just sit there idle. And this actually works. You can see here, I'm getting 45 FPS just outside Red Rocket because I have a fully built up settlement here. It's quite taxing on my PC. Literally just downloaded this mod, put on the default settings, and I'm immediately at 60 FPS. Technically 58 FPS because that's what the mod's targeting, but to me, both of these look visually comparable. It's not a huge downgrade for that huge boost in FPS. 15 FPS is pretty massive. And to be clear, I'm using a pretty high-end system here. It's not like this is only beneficial for lower-end systems. I'm able to walk around downtown Boston in Fallout 4 with a near 60 FPS the entire time. That's something I have literally never done in Fallout 4. Every time, one of these mods will give me a boost, but never as much as this one. So now, of course, the trade-off with this one is there's going to be a visual downgrade from time to time, depending on how high of an FPS you're trying to hit and what the current performance in that area is like. But for me, I barely noticed this, and I think 9 times out of 10, or really like 9.9 times out of 10, I would pick the FPS over the visuals. The only major drawback was sometimes when you turn quickly and things adjusted, you'd get kind of a pop-in as things did adjust in real time. So for many people, it's really going to be a value proposition, but for me, the FPS bonuses are definitely worth the visual reduction and the occasional pop-in. To me, this is definitely one of the best Fallout 4 performance-based mods we've ever gotten for the game, and I would definitely recommend downloading it and just seeing how things perform. You could even just configure these settings to exactly what you want. Next up, we do have Gunners Revisited, which is actually a pretty interesting mod, as it's going to be a re-implementation of a very old mod, all the way back from 2016 with Wasteland Grunts. Wasteland Grunts added in a variety of reworked gunner-themed armors for Fallout 4, kind of being a crossover between Fallout 4 and more modern military. Basically what the gunners were, but maybe a bit more into the modern military theme. What this new mod is going to do is combine all of the content of that old mod, add in some updates, and actually implement it into the leveled list of the gunners. So in the end, it actually gives the gunners in Fallout 4 a bit more of a military feel, but it's not too extreme, and I feel like that's why this mod could be pretty popular. There's a lot of mods that will bring the gunners to a full-on tactical feel, full plate armor, and all kinds of different pouches. This mod's quite a bit lighter than that, and although it does have some new additions, it's much closer to Fallout 4, and I personally find this aesthetic to just be far more lore-friendly. Weapon Carry Limit is a fascinating new mod that'll add in hard limits on how many weapons you can carry. So if you have more than 2 primary weapons, classified as two-handed weapons, SMGs, rifles, launchers, etc., you'll just become over-encumbered. So if you try and hold 2 rifles, you'll have your carry weight reduced to 0 and you won't be able to walk quickly. But if you drop one of them, you'll go back to your normal carry weight restrictions. This applying to sidearms as well, so you could have up to 2 sidearms at a time, as well as explosives, so you could have up to 5 explosives at a time, for a grand total of 1 primary, 2 sidearms, and 5 explosives. And overall, it is this really interesting balancing change up in Fallout 4 that incentivizes basically having a more practical loadout with a couple of explosives, a primary, a secondary, and probably a melee weapon. And it's one of those mods that'll have you relying on some of the other systems in Fallout 4 a bit more, using a companion to actually hold things for you, or some kind of pack mule in some way, or having to make those hard choices when you find something that might be a better weapon. As of right now, unfortunately, there isn't a mod configuration menu to edit these values, but this mod is brand new. It literally only came out a few days ago, and I wouldn't be shocked if that comes. There's even some comments on the mod page suggesting to add it or offering to add it, and I think that ability to configure these limits will really take this from an interesting mod to a really cool mod that could be used on every playthrough, as it is a fun change-up that will impact the entire game. Even if it's relatively simple, it does carry a fairly dramatic change across the entire playthrough. A lot of the decision making is around what weapon to use or what weapons you're carrying. But with that said, that's a look at some of the best best new mods to come out for Fallout 4 in August 2022. Technically, that's not totally true, as 2 of these came out in late July, but I don't think anyone actually cares about that. I'm just showing you cool new mods for Fallout 4, and hopefully you enjoyed them. With that said, as always, again, I thank you for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this one, but with that, I hope to see you all next time. Later.